Recording is started, so let's start. So, good evening, everyone. Um, if anyone has any doubts regarding the previous session or the assignment, because the assignment had to be improved few times because there were tiny mistakes or uh, let's say missed opportunities. So, if anyone has any doubt regarding the assignment or the previous session, you can ask me right now. You can write in the chat box or open a mic to reply, but be a little responsive. Okay. Um, okay, so I guess no one has any doubts. I would be talking a bit about the assignment at the end of the class, but for now, let's start the session. Good evening, everyone. So let's start. Sure. Yeah. So is the screen visible? Okay. So yeah. Basically, today we'll do everything related to functions. And as you may know, functions are small blocks of code that can be individually executed and repeatedly called from any other part of the code, right? So a function basically in other languages, it usually has, let's say, a return type. Like in Java, when you write a function, it has to be int or string or something like that. But for Python, the syntax is completely different. You start with the keyword def and then the name of a function. Let's say the name of my function is test. Then opening and closing parentheses. Now, what goes inside these parentheses can be used by the function to do various operations. So, like then you put in the semicolon, the colon, not the semicolon, the colon, and then it's the same uh, four space gap or a tab gap, and then whatever you want to type, whatever you want the function to do. So let's, for starters, let's say print um, works. So you can basically call the function by just saying the function name and then the parentheses. When we run this, it prints this. So how this basically works is, how a function basically works is, a function is isolated from the rest of the code and it will not execute until it is called. All right. And when it is called, uh, yeah, so it's called using its own name and then a set of arguments that we will discuss in a bit. And then when this executes, it goes to the function and does whatever the function uh, does. All right. Now, what a function is? A function is space in the memory. All right. So I'll show you this like this. All right. So let's say we assign the function x. We assign the function to variable x. All right. So when I print x, let's say path here, where I'll print something. You see this. This is a memory space. Right. So this shows that a function of the name test is at the space 0x0025 like this, right? So you can do stuff like this too. You can assign a function to another variable so it can be used anywhere. And when you use the function using the variable, basically this is not a variable, this is called an alias. All right. Alias, as the English definition is, uh, let's say different name for something. When you assign test to x, now x has become the alias for test. Let's all like, then I can say, let's say print x and the parenthesis, and let's edit it to say print called using x. All right. So when we do this, it prints this, and then you see this none type. All right. What this none means is that there is no return value. What the return value means is every function has to return something when it is done executing, right? So if there's no return function, it would basically return a none type. What a none type is basically space in the a space in the memory which has nothing. That's what the simplest definition you can say is. So yeah, that's basically what starting functions looks like. Now let's say we want to pass something into the variable, into the function. All right, so you can type basically anything here. Let's say test name and let's say lang. All right, then what it does is let's this time return something. So return something by using the keyword return. Right now you if you remember something is, if you use a keyword as a variable somewhere, let's say 5, it would return an error. So let me understand it works. So this would return an error. So you have to be sure to never use keywords as variables anywhere. Like I saw a few examples. Assignments where this was used, str. So basically, this is a function in Python, but you should not use names like function, integer, or basically any inbuilt function, because it will cause confusion when you write longer codes. Coming back to what I was saying, let's say return an f string says your name is name, the lang or the language is lang, right? So let's print this statement. Like, let's say s pass in my name and language, I think. When we run this and this gets passed in here, right? And then it's used inside the function. Now I cannot use them outside the function, I guess, right? Let's try print name. Won't print anything. Yeah. So these are called local variables, right? They are local to the function we're defining them in. We cannot use them outside the function. So these are called local variables, right? So yeah. Now let's say you basically interchange these arguments. All right, let's say Python and Python. All right, now when you print this, it says your name is Python and your language is Python. Now As you can see, the way the order in which these variables are defined has to be the same in which the past arguments are defined. But let's say a function has many possible parameters that it can use, or the variables it can use, like if you use numpy somewhere, or any other library, it uses various parameters. So what you can do here is, so you don't pass in long parameters to the long variables. What you can say is, the variable name, then the, yeah, then its value, and again Python. When we run this, it executes like this. Now let's say we do this. All right. Now we reverse the order, but the output will still be the same. Yeah, because uh, now Python is passed into the language variable directly using the assignment. Like now I can use it anywhere and it would still work. But another thing you need to remember is all the, sorry, yeah. First of all, what I need to clarify is these are called keyword arguments. Right. Now these keyword arguments have to come after the non-keyword arguments. Let's say my name. But if I say something different, let's say the language first and then the name second, this will give us an error. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah. So it gives us an error, and it even describes what the error is. Positional arguments. So these are called positional arguments or keyword arguments or named arguments, whatever name you want to use. So these are called positional arguments. Follows, sorry, these are called positional arguments. I'm sorry. These are called positional arguments. So positional arguments follow keyword arguments, right? So these have to be here. Now it works well. And that's it about basically what you will need to use functions for. But to show something more you can do with functions. So now let's say I use a star and then any variable name, let's say key. All right. So, and let's print key, and let's remove these. Like, or we can just say return a string where name is t0 and lang is p1. Yeah, I'll explain this in a bit, but first let me show you what it does. Let's call test again and pass in our usual parameters that we've been passing. And when we run this, yeah, we have to print it. I'm returning a value. When we print this, it says f string. This comes here. So now when we run this, it says your name is Raj and your lang is Python. But as you can see right here, we only passed a single variable. All right. We only used a single variable here, but here we passed two different arguments. Now I can say A, B, and C. Still work perfectly fine. Yeah. What this star means is it will take any number of positional arguments. Right. So what happens here is this entire thing is packed into a tuple and passed here. Alright. So let me just show you what a tuple will look like. In T is, as you can see, this entire thing is passed. This entire thing is passed into the variable by packing it into a tuple, and then you can use various functions, various indexes on the variable to access these arguments. Now, something similar like this also exists for keyword arguments. So right now, let's say star t, right? So and then pass in name is equals to, and then lang is equals to Python, and name is equals to a r1 is equals to a r2 is equals to b. Now when we print this, you can see the output. All right. Now what this double star, yeah, what the double star basically means is you can take n number of keyword arguments, right? Any number of keyword arguments it can take, and what it does with them is it packs them into a dictionary, with this being the key and these being the value, right? So all I can say something like the name. Yeah, yeah, this has to be a string string. When we run this, it returns rn. Okay, so you can use a combination of these. Let's say name, lang, then star. Let's say what can I say? Other langs. Let's name this as name lang. Right. Now then let's say star qualifications. Right. And let's remove this. Now what this basically means is it has to take a name variable and a mainline variable, and then some optional variables which are not required, but if you pass something in, it would still work. Let's say other langs and a qualification. This is a very long variable name. Let's spell it. And let's move this for now and return. Now I can say then, and my main language would be Python. My other languages can be Java, C, C. If I run this, say success. Now, if I say something like other qualifications could be current education. It's still a very long variable. Let's say qualification can be dash. I didn't think of anything. Let's call it test is equals to let, and this still works. So you can pass in positional arguments, or let's say a function can have compulsory positional arguments, compulsory keyword arguments. Compulsory positional or keyword arguments, then optional positional arguments, and optional keyword arguments. Now, this part is rarely used, but let's say you have a form. All right. Now the form has your name, your age, your date of birth, etc., and then it has some.
Sir, someone wants to join the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone is not. He is messaged in a WhatsApp, sir. He's not able to attend. Join the class.
So let me just on top. Kanika know about this. Okay, my phone has been ringing for a while. Oh yeah, Nitin. Yeah. Also, I just realized my earphone was kind of unplugged. You were able to hear me, right? Hello. Let's stop thinking for a while and contact Kanika about this. Hello, am I audible?
No, sir. Someone messaged in a WhatsApp. He's not able to join the class.
I got that, but I guess for the past 10 minutes, my um, earphones were kind of disconnected. So you were able to hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is no issue. Let me just get Kanika on. Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I've texted Miss Kanika and we'll see. Alright. So I'll continue sharing. I'm so, I'm so sorry. I got. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I have bad throat for 2 days now. Anyways, um, yeah, coming back to this, we have covered functions. We have covered functions to variables. Yeah, and then the yield function. Right now, let's say we have a function. Right, I can say let's just call it x a variable a. Right now, I can say print a and return. Right. Now I can write anything below this. Let's say a is equals to 0. Right. And now test. When I run this, it prints 5, and let's say I make an error here. As you can see, when I type return, it completely forgets or ignores this part. I can make n number of mistakes here. As you can see, this is not print. I omitted the R here, but it completely ignores this part, right? So if I just comment it, it will give me an error. But when the return function is called, the rest of the code, you can say code, is completely ignored, right? But let's say if I type y e e l y e e l d sorry, and I run this, it is supposed to print something, but yeah, let's yield. Yield is not working like it's intended to. When we say return, okay, yield will not work until it is a generator function. So yield is something of an advanced topic. It uh, has to do something with generator functions, and generator function is not something you will ever use. So let's not talk about it. If you want to learn about it, I will, let's say, uh, prepare a generator in the next class. Now let's say function signature. So yeah, basically when you write this, and whatever you write in these parentheses, that is called the function's signature. Sorry. Yeah. Whatever you write inside this is called the function signature. Let's say name and class. It is class is a keyword. Let's say CLA, and let's say pass. So here name and CLA is the function signature. Right. I guess Python doesn't give you a warning, but I guess Java does when the signature does not match what you're passing into the function. Let's say test A and test. Let's say 5 and 6. And let's say argument. Just give a warning. Yeah, it does not give a signature matching warning. Wait a second. Anyways, yeah, that's it. This part is called a signature, the function signature. So that's it for this part. Now let's look at lambdas or lambdas. Sorry, yeah. What a lambda is basically let's say one line function or a micro function. Right. It is used. Uh, let's say if you have to find square of some number, so you can do it like this. This would generate no problem, right? But the issue here is this does not look clean. Right? This is not the uh, proper way of writing code. Let me just put my phone on silent. Yeah. So this is one way of defining a function, but let's say the function is really small. Second, I have to reply to some. Yeah, let's say we have to write a very small function. So we use the lambda keyword, BD, right? And the syntax here is the first thing is the lambda keyword, then the arguments it is going to take. Now it cannot take these arguments because it is a smaller function. So let's say it takes an argument a and then a semicolon. Now it won't go here, it would uh, continue in the next line. And let's say a star a, and let's assign it to variable x, and let's print and x of like so. What a lambda function is, it is a micro function which can take an argument, and whatever is after the semicolon is what is basically returned. All right, so this part is returned here. This part is returned. This is the argument, which can only be positional arguments. There are no keyword arguments, and the lambda keyword. Let me just write here lambda keyword, then positional argument, then the return value of whatever you want the function to be. Let's call it the function block. Right. Now the lambda function is used with a map function. Right. The lambda keyword is used with a map function. Right. So the syntax of the map function is the function and the iterator. Right. So what the map function does is it passes each value of the iterator into the function and gets the return value and stores it. Right. So let's try using this. Right. So let's say we have A, which is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Now this will print a map of first the function, which is the square function, comma, and then the pixel. And we do this, yeah, I have to convert it. Yeah. So a map function basically executes a function, user-defined function or any other function, and it uses that function on a list of iterables. A list of iterables, or basically iterables. It can be list, it can be tuples, or anything you can go over, or let's say anything you can use in a for loop. So let's say I use an inbuilt function int and make these strings. 3, 4, and 5. Right. So when I print this, let's store it in a variable li, and then let's run another map using the type function on li elements. Right. So first I have to convert it into a list. It should work fine. Okay, yeah, the integer object is not callable for some reason. So let's stick to our user-defined one, right? So let's say li is equals to a list of a map. Now let's say let's say you can also use lambda functions here, the lambda, and then the argument, and then a plus 5, and this will work on the variable k. Change this so the conflict, and we have this print. Sorry. Yeah. So what a map basically does is it takes this, executes this, then goes to the next um, element and executes this, and it executes this for the entire table. So basically, it is uh, let's say you use a for loop for this, right? You can use a for loop where it goes something like for I in a, then I plus 5, I plus string. Right. So if I do this and make the end easy to a space, yeah. So this is the first part with the I uh, loop, and this is the one generated with a map uh, with the map function. This function right here. So a map is basically used together with the lambda function to generate a list, basically a list that has gone through a set of uh, operations. Now let's say you have a big enough, yeah, let's say you have a big project and you write around 1,000 lines of code, right? So 1,000 lines of code in a single file can be very messy. So what we can do is, let me just create another Python file. Sorry. Let's say test.py, and this is a second file. Now let's say print imported test module, and let's define a function which says and which prints test says hi. All right, we'll save this and we come here. Now we do something called importing. Import test basically, and then we call test dot function test dot saves. Let's see the output here. Yeah, first it prints import test module, which we asked it to print. Right here, let's put imported. First it printed this. Then when we call the function says, it printed this part. So let's say I comment this part and run it again. Now only this part is executed. So this is what the import function does. So like what an import function is it goes and fetches a Python file, which can be then used, uh, and the functions in the other file, this file, can be used by us in the main file. All right. Now let's say we do not have this function and just a bunch of code which is not set into functions. Now, when we import something, the entire code in the imported module is run or it's executed. So it will go over the entire code once, and whatever the statements are executed like this, it uh, these will be executed first, and as you can see, this is inside a function. And as I told you, a function will not execute unless it is called. It will go through this entire code once and does what the code tells you to do. Right. Now let's say, and for this you have to, let's say you are calling a function that is in the other file. All right. So you have to use this uh, module name. This is called the module name. All right. This is called the import function. I'm so sorry. Yeah. This is called the import function, and this is called the module. All right. So you type the module name dot into the function. Yeah, and then the function it has. All right. Now, let's say you will be working, let's say, with a module, and you do not want to use the module name dot the function syntax over and over. So what you do is you use the keyword from in the module name, and then the keyword import, and this small star. So what this basically reads is from test module import everything. Now what this means is you will not have to reference the functions using the module name. So let's say if I run this, it will generate an error. The test is not defined. So what basically happens when we call import.module, what happens is the entire module, this module or this file is stored as, let's say, a class of sorts. All right, it is saved as a class. We'll study about classes later. Saved as a class inside this variable. Let's uh, understand it that way. Right. So saved as a class inside this variable. Then you can use class dot method to use the functions from other files. But what happens when we use this function? When we use sorry, yeah. What happens when we use from keyword, then the module name, then the import keyword, and then the star. Right. So what it does is it imports everything. It basically takes everything and makes it a part of like this code. It makes a part of this code. Let's say it is visualized as this is, yeah, to see what was happening behind the scene. Basically, this is what it means. When you say this, what it basically does is it basically takes the entire code and puts it into the file as a way of saying, not actually, it doesn't actually put it into the file, but as a way of understanding, it puts it into the file behind the scenes. On the other hand, when you use the import function and then the module name, it takes the entire code and convert and passes it into the variable. So you have to always use the variable to uh, access the methods. But when you use this from statement. You can use this statement right here. You can basically call the functions. You can call the methods directly, right? As you can see, I did not have to put in a reference here. Now, what are the disadvantages of this? Is it may be fast, but it increases the runtime. It increases the total runtime, and let's say you use predefined library. Let's say you use a module called OS. There's a predefined module called OS, and when you import this, your entire application, right, your entire application size increases. But when you use this, it works. Uh, it basically takes less space, and the run times are slower because it works on references. Right. Now the speed difference is not very notable. You can basically use this if you are not um, bothered by the space it takes. Right. And I guess that's it for today. I'm so sorry. I have a very bad throat for around 24 hours now. I can barely speak, and I apologize for that. So, anyways, if anyone has any doubt, you can ask me right now. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, and about the assignment, I kind of checked a few assignments. In some of them, I had to suggest some changes, which is no big deal. This is why I'm here. But there were a few assignments which were unnecessarily which were unnecessarily long. For example, this program I gave you should have around, let's say, one, two, five, six, around 10 lines of code maximum. But I saw a few submissions which were around 20 lines, 25 lines. Yeah, it should not have been even 11 lines. 10 lines is what you would need maximum to implement the last program I told you. And there are around 5, 6 people who have not submitted it yet. You can submit the assignments, and those who are submitted and are not graded, they will be graded in 2 days now. Uh, in 2 days from now, right? So I have another assignment in mind, and I would like to see what logic you use in that. All right. So the assignment would be you have to create a simulation of a snake and ladders game. All right. There will be only one player, and the numbers will be generated randomly from 1 to 6, and there will be ladders, there will be snakes, and you will have to implement the entire single player simulation. Let's say. So I'm giving you 5 minutes. Think of the best ideas you can, and tell me the logic, because it would be difficult if you do not go through the logic once. So if anyone has any logical ideas they think they can use to implement it. Anyone? So I guess no one is coming forward. So I'll just assign you the program and you can figure it out. Because I tried asking you what logic you may use so I can define the logic. But I guess I'll just take the assignments now. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you everyone, and apologies if the presentation had been a little uh, let's say bad because I was very bad. So I apologize for today, but and that's it for today. Thank you everyone. You can leave. Yes, Pradip, sir. Yes, Mr. Akshay, the class is over. You can leave.